everybody, and welcome back to Life as a Law Student. My name is Nicole and I am technically no longer a law student. I graduated from Washington University in St. Louis just a couple months ago, back in May of 2022. As of filming this, it is the end of August 2022, so I'm just waiting for my bar exam results so that I can officially say that I'm a lawyer. But in the meantime, I'm in this waiting period, and I was trying to think what would be a fun thing to talk about until I can move into this next stage of life. And I remembered that back before I even started law school in 2019, I believe it was in August, so almost exactly 3 years ago, I filmed this video about my expectations for law school. Obviously, a lot of things did not go as planned, specifically, not being in person for most of my classes because of a worldwide event that nobody thought was happening. So it should be interesting to reflect back. I honestly don't remember what I said in this video, except that I think I remember saying I was going to exercise a lot, and that did not happen. So let's go ahead and watch this video again together, and I will let you know what did and did not happen according to my expectations. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Life as a Law Student. My name is Nicole, and in just a couple weeks, I am actually finally starting law school at Washington University in St. Louis. And guys, I'm so excited. But I will be taking a 6-day, 40-hour road trip with my dad, moving up to St. Louis this week. So if you want to join me for part of that, make sure to follow me on Instagram. I'll be posting on my story. Speaking of which, I asked my Instagram followers a couple of days ago which videos they would most like to see this month while I am starting law school. And the number one choice was this video that you're watching right here, my honest expectations for law school. I put so much effort into how I looked for these videos, and that is not the case anymore. Some of my expectations, and some of these are positive, some of these are negative, and I thought it would be a cool video idea to come back at the end of my first year and tell you guys if these expectations ended up. So I totally forgot I was supposed to do this at the end of the first year, but here we are at the end of law school altogether. Coming true. These aren't necessarily all things that I hope will happen or hope will not happen. It's just my best guess as to what this next year will be like. So please don't take this video as what law school is, because I'm not there yet. My first expectation for law school is that it's going to be a challenging but welcome adjustment back into the world of consistent mental stimulation. I graduated last December, and so I haven't been in school for about 8 months now. I have been working hard. I've obviously been doing this YouTube channel. It's kind of funny to hear my former self say that, because I technically finished all of my law school classes last December as well. So similar to college, I kind of finished everything a semester early. But unlike in college, I didn't graduate law school in December. I still had 1 semester to go. I just spent it doing an internship instead of going to classes. But I do feel this sense of having been out of school for like 8 months. The biggest difference though is that I did spend 3 months studying for the bar exam, which is the most studying I've ever done in my life. So I'm not feeling any itch at all to go back to school ever again. But I haven't been writing papers or reading detailed analytical scholarship. So I really enjoy challenging mental work and learning new things, and so I'm excited to get back into that with law school, especially because I'm finally getting to apply those skills and those passions for something that I care about and I'm dedicating my life to. But I do expect that it is going to be a bit of adjustment period for me as I get back into that swing of things. My second expectation for law, I don't think it actually took very much time at all for me to get back into reading the cases and critically thinking and writing papers, mostly because all of it was so different than what I had done in college. It wasn't the same type of work, and so I wasn't really trying to remember how to do anything. I was relearning how to do different versions of the same things. I've talked about this in other videos, but legal writing is not like regular writing. You have to purposely do a bunch of the things you were always taught not to do, like be repetitive, be over the top
simplifying, but also be very specific in your word choice and overly anal about editing and proofreading and grammar and things like that. Just overall much less creative, especially when compared to a lot of the English papers I was writing for my minor in college.
School is that I will be able to take Sundays as a Sabbath day for myself to read, see or talk to friends, go do my grocery shopping, maybe film and edit videos, still being productive, but not necessarily applying that time to homework or reading or case briefing. And I think
I did not do that. I think I probably could have, but what I ended up doing instead, not that this is a recommendation, but just the reality, is that I spent a lot of the late afternoon and early evening time to myself to, at least pre-pandemic, invest in social situations and call home and stuff like that. I did a really great job always cooking myself dinner and not skimping out and just having ramen or PB&J all the time. So while I didn't dedicate a whole day of the week to rest and rejuvenation like I would have liked to, and which I think is probably a really good thing to do because the Bible says it is, and I believe in the Bible, I honestly didn't really end up doing that. I might have had a couple weeks where most of the Sunday was set aside for church and for fellowship with other believers and friends, some of which were not believers. But overall, I don't think I really did as great of a job of that as I probably could have had I prioritized it more.
And I think maybe law students would hear that and think that's not a realistic expectation. And honestly, I didn't do a great job of doing that in college. I think one thing that the last 8 months have taught me is that self-care and taking a rest day for yourself is something that God tells us to do for a very good reason. It really does make the rest of the week work a lot smoother, makes you more energetic and excited, I think, to do the work that you have to do. I don't necessarily take the view that a Sabbath has to be you sitting around and doing nothing all day. I think it's taking the time to go to church, to invest in relationships, do something else that God has called you to do and giving you the opportunity to get involved in besides your actually day-to-day grind. And so I do expect myself to do a little bit of a better job at that, but I will let you know if that ends up being the case. My third expectation might sound like kind of a sad one, but I do think it's going to be challenging for me to make meaningful relationships in my first year of law school. I really hope this is not the case, but I do know that it took me a good while to get those kinds of relationships at Wheaton where everybody was already my age and a Christian and saw the world at least in a similar way to how I do. And that is not really going to be the case at Washington University.
Yeah, that ended up being absolutely true. I started my first year of law school trying to befriend the people that I sat next to in class. Those are obviously the people you're going to have the most interaction with on an organic level without actually taking time to schedule anything extra. And for the first semester, I'd say that went okay. But by the end of law school, the 5-ish people that I talked to regularly my first semester of law school did not talk to me anymore. With the exception of maybe one who we'd say hi and bye, as we pass each other in the halls or might text each other every now and again. As far as regularly staying in contact, none of the people that I met my first semester of law school would fall into that category. With classes moving online, that became even more difficult. I left law school not feeling confident that any of the relationships I made would survive very long beyond graduation. I would love to think that is not true. There are probably 2 or 3 people who I met in law school who are really wonderful human beings who I would love to stay friends with and remain in contact with on a semi-regular basis at least. But the reality is that none of those people live in Chicago, and we just didn't have that much time together in law school. By the time we met each other and hung out a couple times, graduation and my semester of interning full-time in Chicago was upon us. So as much as I wouldn't like this to be the case, it is very possible that in the next 5 to 10 years, I will look back and see that I didn't have any lifelong relationships surviving law school. That doesn't mean that they weren't meaningful or that I don't currently appreciate them for what they are, but that was disappointing to me that that expectation turned out to be true. Thankfully, looking back at my time at Wheaton, I still have a lot of friends who are at least in the Midwest who remain very close and dear to my heart, and I get to talk to on a regular basis. So I have a good foundation of friendships. Don't worry, I'm not a total loner. Just most of those friendships are not coming from my time in law school.
Which is equally exciting and a little nerve-wracking. I love hearing different perspectives and engaging with people who have different worldviews, but engaging with people and making meaningful relationships are very different things. And so while I hope that meaningful relationships do come quickly and genuinely, I do think it's going to take a while for that to happen. My next expectation for law school is that I will be able to find a great study regimen that I can stick to and be disciplined about. This is, again, not something I was great at Wheaton, but my impression is that that is so pertinent to your success, not only on a grade level, but a mental and emotional and physical level at law school. I'm a lot better at doing things that I have to do than things that I should do, and so
that is still the case.
I think that I will be better about it at law school, especially given my class schedule, which I just got a couple days ago. It looks like I will be spending a lot of time in the library just out of efficient necessity. And because of that, I think that I will be able to figure out a good study regimen for myself. And hopefully I meet that expectation, because I don't know what's going to happen if I don't. My next
studying went well overall in law school. I don't know that I had as regular of a routine as maybe I thought that I would be able to establish over the course of 3 years, which did not involve total access to the building or the library for much of that time. I think, though, that I did find my rhythm. It changed a little bit every semester with a different class schedule and different levels of difficulty between classes. I also had a couple classes where I was able to find a study partner, which ended up really helping me for outline creation. I've talked about that in other videos. Studying looks so different for everybody, and I think even in one person, it can look different from situation to situation. So the first semester definitely was a little bit harder than the rest of law school when I had it figured out a bit more on what worked for me and what didn't. What ended up working for me the first semester was mind mapping, which is kind of this visual representation of like bubble charts, kind of connecting different ideas and themes together. And then in future semesters, what worked for me was literally reading through all of my notes and creating an outline that condensed those notes, particularly focusing on understanding what I was writing as I wrote it down. I also had a couple classes where our exams were open book, and so the outline then became important as a potential reference, even while I still focused on memorizing and, this is key, understanding what I was studying as I was putting it into that more organized outline structure. I honestly don't think I spent relatively that much time in the library, especially compared to a lot of my peers who I know just set up little offices in the basement. I definitely had a couple late nights where I was there because I had like a night class and I didn't feel like driving to my apartment for 2 hours just to come back. So I did things like that, but when I had a big chunk of free time with no end in sight, I didn't really stick around at the library. Maybe I should have. Probably would have been more productive there than I was on my couch in my apartment, but it all worked out.
This expectation might not be 100% honest, but I'm really hoping it is, and I'm putting in this video so that future me can hear me say it and be either ashamed or proud of myself. I expect that I will be dedicated to working out even just a little bit, like for 10 minutes,
I told you.
3 times a week. I am historically bad at working out.
3 times a week, like 30 minutes a week should be nothing, but I just don't do it. In 2020, when I was home all the time, I was actually pretty good about doing like 20 minutes a day for 6 months there. I was doing really well. And then the holidays happened and classes went back to being in person. and I wasn't doing well anymore. I almost never went to the gym. I just didn't feel like I knew what I was doing there. I tried to go to a couple classes that WashU hosted, like exercise programs, but they were never at a convenient time for me. Yeah, honestly didn't meet this one, and it looks like I expected to not meet this one.
Oh my lord. If you look at how little I work out or do any kind of physical activity in life, you would be shocked at how little regard I seem to have for my body. But it really is something that I know is good for me, and I want to be better at it. Actually, I want to be better at it.
Still
you
true.
Feel me? So I'm saying it now 3 times a week, future Nicole. Please tell me I did it. Another expectation I have for general life in law school is that I will have way less time to cook, clean, do laundry, stay organized than I think I will.
That actually surprised me. I did a lot more cooking and organizing and things like that than I probably did have time for. I certainly was not cleaning a lot because it was just me and my apartment, and I'm not that dirty. I cleaned when people came over, but I probably could have cleaned more. I had the time. So that was actually surprising. I thought that I would be studying and socializing a lot more than I actually did, but I prioritized being comfortable in my space and not hating my life. So
not underestimate how long that stuff takes, and it's something that I would rather do than study most of the time. So my procrastination is probably not going to end, which is why that study regimen is so important, so at least I get something done. But I do think I will probably continue to underestimate the time it takes to just do normal living adult things. 2 more to go. First, I think that professors will be less interested in my personal life than they were in college and more focused on simply my learning in classes.
That's probably true. I had a lot of awesome professors in college who are still my friends now, and we hang out and get lunch, and I update them on all of my ups and downs in life. Law school, that's not really as true. I definitely had a couple professors who were very kind people and got to know me a little bit, but there wasn't any just hanging out, for the sake of building that student-professor relationship that could turn into a friendship post classes. I think that those relationships, if they are professionally maintained, will probably stay more professional than personal, just because that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I will say with Mute Court, I got to eat and whatever with that professor once. And I also had a professor who I did an escape room with. That was super fun. I went to this student auction, and he had put up basically this escape room party kind of thing, and I bought it with 2 of the other students, so we all got to go and do that.
Something that I really valued at Wheaton was just how open all the professors were to talking with me, to having relationship, to praying with me. Some of my high school teachers were that way too. And while I hope that that continues into law school, I don't know, I get a different vibe from what the law school professor profession is. I would love to do that networking, that relationship that goes beyond just the strict professional level. But I'm not necessarily going to put that expectation on anybody. But I really hope I'm wrong, because it's awesome to be mentored on more than a professional level, but on a personal level too. My last expectation is kind of a tragic one. I really think that halfway through the semester or the school year, I'm going to find out that I did something either way harder than I needed to, or just did it totally wrong. I don't think I'll do that for everything, and hopefully I won't do that for any of the major things. But we always learn in life, and sometimes we learn the hard way. Often I learn the hard way, and hopefully I will learn from that and not make the same mistake again. But there's no way that I'm gonna go into law school and do everything right. Like, that would just be ridiculous. So we're gonna be honest about that expectation that I will mess up, but there's grace and life will go on.
I'm sure I could think of a better example of this if I'd done this video when I originally thought I was going to, back after the first year of law school, or if I thought about it longer. But the only thing that really comes to mind of something I learned how to do after I did it wrong is the whole time spent reading cases. I think if you ask anybody in law school, they're going to tell you that you start law school thinking that you need to brief every case, like create a Word document with the title of the case, the parties, the facts, the reasoning, and the holding. And I think I did that one time before I realized that is way too much work and I'm not willing to do it, even if I'm supposed to. But for the first year, I was still reading every case from front to back. And by the middle of the second year, I realized I did not need to do that. There's this program called Quimby, which a lot of schools, including mine, purchased a subscription for students. And the idea of Quimby is not to replace reading cases, but to give you a summary of the key takeaways so that you can make sure you understand what you were supposed to from that case. Most students that I knew used Quimby as a substitute for reading cases, and I would be completely lying if I said I never did that either. I didn't do it for every case, but there were definitely moments where you had, like, my corporations class would have a couple really long cases, like 20 pages long in a big textbook, just single-spaced 11-point type, and you just felt like you were gonna die. And if you watched a 3-minute Quimby video, you were just as prepared for class, honestly, 9 times out of 10. This is not my endorsement of not doing your homework, but sometimes you don't need to do all your homework. Putting that extreme aside, you really do get much faster at reading cases, not because you get faster at reading, but because you learn kind of what key phrases and milestones in the reading to look for to actually get the reasoning and the holding, which is all that you really need to know. That's the point of reading cases. The actual facts and parties and all of that doesn't matter that much, except to the extent that it informs the reasoning of why the holding is the holding, why the rule from the case is the rule that is going to apply in future cases. So that's definitely something that I think every student does wrong. It's not particularly wrong to read the whole case and take copious notes, but you'll learn, I'd say, after the first year to what extent you actually need to do that.
Okay, so those are all of my 100% honest expectations for law school, except the exercise one. I'm so excited to start and find out if these expectations were real or not. Obviously, the ones that were kind of unfortunate, I hope are totally false. And all of the ones that are great and indicative of a better version of myself, I hope all come true. Let me know in the comments below if you think any of these expectations were realistic or unrealistic, what expectations you have for law school or had for law school. I will see you guys next Monday or sooner if you guys travel with me through the Instagram stories this week. And until then, God bless.
So I guess that concludes my assessment on how I did meeting my expectations. I definitely had a lot to learn when I was starting law school, and situations outside of my realm of control absolutely affected my ability to complete law school the way that I thought I could or hoped that I would. However, that being said, I did finish law school, and I did so in a way that enabled me to get a couple job offers I was really excited about. That was the goal. I went to law school so that I could get a job. Nothing else was even close to as important as that, to me at least. And I hope that if nothing else, this video encourages you that if you're going into law school feeling like imposter syndrome or the underdog, or like all of these expectations have been set for you that are just super high and you'll never be able to meet, you can still complete law school and meet your goal of being a lawyer. The goal is graduation, not the highest grades or the best friends or exercising every day. If any of these expectations or others apply to you, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me out, and then I can continue to make videos like this for you in the future. Speaking of which, until the next one, God bless.